First Samuel chapter 17, verses 38 through 50. I'm not going to read it all. I'm going to kind of paraphrase and give you a story. David is a shepherd. To me, he's making the most of his time. He plays his harp. He talks to God. I want you to imagine, he's a shepherd. He's out in a big open field with the sheep, with his harp, playing music for God, talking to God. Imagine the night sky. Imagine the stars in the sky. How deep he was with the Lord. And when he was out there, he would have to have battles of his own. He had to fight his own battles. He really did. Because there was lions out there. There was bears out there. And they would come to kill the sheep. And David would fight them. He knew God was behind him. He fought very bravely and he would kill them. Now for me, I probably would have been freaked out and went back home and said, Dad, give me a different job. But no, he was faithful in the little God gave him, right? So here we come upon God's people, the Israelites. And they had a real enemy, which was the Philistines. And they had a champion named Goliath. And nobody would fight Goliath. They would have lost. He was a giant. They were fearful. God's people were fearful. Here came David, and he was doing what his father said. He was bringing his brother's food. And he starts saying, who does this giant think he is? We can take him. We can take him. We have God by our side. And his brother rebukes him, tells him something. Who are you? Who do you think you are to stand up where we couldn't win this battle? How can you pipsqueak, you little thing, you with no name, who do you think you are? Oh, and it reminds me of the scriptures that say the Lord takes the things that the world considers foolish to conform the wise, right? Sometimes God uses the foolish things to conform those who think they know it all, right? So David is brave. Nobody saw his faithfulness while in the field. Nobody saw the relationship he had gained with the Savior. He's different. He's little in their eyes. He's courageous in heart, and he knows who he is in God, and that offends them because he didn't do it like the others. He didn't come through the army like everybody else, God's army. He was on the outskirts. He had his own battles. He knew God personally, but they didn't know it. But they judged him. And so the king gets wind of this young man. And he says, look, son, this guy has been in the army since he was a boy, Goliath, this giant. You don't want to go up against him. And David says, listen, while I was in the field, I had lions and bears try to take sheep, and I fought them and I killed them. And he is no different, this giant. God is with us. And so he says, okay, but put on my armor. So he makes him put on all this armor, this heavy armor. Come, do it like I do it. Fight the way I fight. Use the weaponry that I use when I go to battle. So David tries to do what the king asks of him. He tries. And he puts it on and he goes, I'm not comfortable in this. I didn't need it when I fought battles before, and I don't need it now. So he takes off the armor and he takes 3 smooth stones and a slingshot. And he prophesies to this giant what his end will be. And bravely he spoke. And this giant just mocks David. Thinks he's a pipsqueak too. Thinks he's nothing and nobody, just a boy. So the people of God, God's people, don't believe in him. The enemy doesn't believe in him, but God believed in him. He had faith, he had courage. And so God's favor was on this man's life, this young man's life, and he was behind every stone. He was behind his slingshot. Everything he did, God was behind. because he put his trust in his God, right? So David goes on the field, and with one shot, David takes down the giant. So they tried to pacify the hero, who was David. They tried to keep him quiet. Don't speak, David. You're out of turn. You're not in the Lord's army. You aren't with the rest of them. You've never been with us in these battles. And all along, David knew who he was. I have fought my own battles with God. Even though he looked like the least likely to succeed, he looked like he had never been in a battle in their eyes. But David knew where he had been with his God. God knows who you are. And God knows where he's going to take you, and his favor's on your life. So you don't have to wear someone else's armor. You just have to be connected to your God.